Hi, I'm Amira.
Hi, I'm Akila.
I'm Nurin.
We are Admissions.
Let's talk about Open Distance Learning, or better known as ODL. Before we dive in deeper, make sure to check out our podcast channel Borak Policy on Spotify for our sharing session with Dr. Asmawati Binti Mat Nur, a senior lecturer of Department of Educational Psychology and Counseling, Faculty of Education, University of Malaya, regarding ODL. What is ODL? ODL is when students take courses or classes online instead of attending them in actual classrooms. The biggest difference between online and face-to-face classes is online classes allows you to study anywhere as long as you have a good internet connection, whereas face-to-face classes must be done in a certain location like a classroom. ODL is a very useful tool to communicate, especially during a pandemic situation like COVID-19. It can be used for learning processes and interactions in business, education, and other fields. There are three types of interaction on ODL, which are written, type, audio, voice, and video, face-to-face. Let me begin by explaining about written interactions, and then I'll move on to audio and video interaction. First, written interaction. The typical form of interaction for correspondence study was written assignments and feedback. This medium was used extensively in Malaysia back in early 70s up till early 80s. The interaction is much more complex than traditional writing, since messages can have many characteristics. Next, audio interaction. Audio interaction is usually via a telephone or microphone. For example, audio conference. The instructor must structure and manage the discourse very skillfully in order to produce effective classes, since there is a high potential for confusion, chaos, or boredom otherwise. On the other hand, there is typically little if any preparation for the audio portion of a teleconference, since this is primarily used to answer questions from the audience. The sound quality of audio interaction is always a consideration in audio or teleconference. Poor quality may significantly reduce the effectiveness of the program. Next is a video interaction. Video interaction is a relatively new phenomenon for many dual-mode institutions, since two-way video conferencing systems are just beginning to be commonly used in many ODL institutions. Clearly, the quality of the transmissions affects how people interact via the video system.
As we know, with the COVID-19 pandemic situation in our country, it has severely affected the education sector of all stages, from kindergarten to the tertiary level of education. The parties most affected by it are the students and their educators. The pandemic brought on a 180 degrees change. It turned from attending lessons in classrooms to attending lessons on your bed at home. On the 27th of May 2020, it was announced that the classes and the lessons for all universities will be conducted online. With this unexpected turn of events, it caused all universities' management to re-examine existing organizational or faculty structures. This is required in order to support online learning by investments and allocations for technology, staff training, and establishing rules to support the agency and requirement for online-based learning platforms. To overcome this issue, the education sector in Malaysia has opted for the approach of online learning or e-learning with technology as a mediator of communication to replace face-to-face learning. This is currently the most popular alternative solution to contain the spread of COVID-19. Lastly, educational institutions adopting the various platforms and methods to ensure that online teaching and learning are functional and operational throughout this pandemic period and thereafter. Through this unprecedented situation, numerous applications for education purposes have been introduced as a solution for these methods such as Google Classroom, Google Hangouts, Google Meet, 6-Score Webex, Microsoft Teams, and Zoom. To continue the discussion, even though open distance learning or ODL is a challenge for students, but there are benefits to ODL as well. Firstly, ODL restricts physical interaction. Thus, ODL is convenient in achieving the need for social distancing for both students and educators, since both students and lecturers remain at home, which decreases their chances of being exposed to the virus and the risk of being infected. Secondly, online teaching platforms have the potential to reduce risk of distractions and boredom. For instance, the chat box is one way of promoting engagement as it allows students to ask questions in a written form on top of verbal questions through microphones. This major aspect of the ODL that we really enjoy. Furthermore, some students may be introverts and some are also too shy to ask questions. The chat box can help to engage more students, allowing them ample time to think and participate actively using the chat box as lecturers attend to the questions one by one, prolonging the time to answer the question. ODL can also increase the students' creativity on ODL tools, exploring different ways to make our presentation on par or even better than the previous presentation, while creatively incorporating entertainment values or known as edutainment. Last but not least is it can record lessons. Exhaustion or drowsiness are expected when you need to sit quietly in a lecture theatre for 2 to 3 hours straight, and sometimes you may lose important information. Therefore, with the ODL system, you can repeat the recorded lessons and revise the things that you may miss or forgotten.
Moving on to the next topic. Even though ODL has its benefits, our fellow admissioners should know that there are a few challenges that students face. Firstly, students need to have access to technology as the primary indicator of the online learning readiness, as they will most definitely be facing technical and adapting difficulties. There is a category of people that are unable to afford the instruments needed for e-learning, such as computers, printers, broadband networks, and even a mobile phone, which can lead to internet connectivity problems. Moreover, the challenge that they must face is the difficulty in understanding the content of their syllabus. Plus, there are high chances for them to be distracted at home. Some students may lack the motivation and have less interest to follow through the lessons conducted online, due to their lack of self-discipline or because they prefer face-to-face learning, or it may be both. Hence, with no face-to-face interaction with instructors and other students, those who enroll in an online learning class might find it hard to keep track of their coursework and assignment. In addition, ODL limits students to classes and the learning materials as the ones provided to them are online based. Despite the fact that students can interact through chat rooms or discussion boards, the experience cannot be compared to the typical campus atmosphere. The consequences of ODL can increase the students' level of anxiety and feeling of isolation. It leads to negative thinking due to lack of human interaction. For those who have kids, face-to-face classes allow them to be separated from their children for a while by sending them to the nursery or school. As a result, they can attend and give full attention in the class. Unfortunately, that type of situation is no longer available nor easy for them during this crucial time.
How the government helps during open distance learning. Although the COVID-19 virus infection is still rising during this time, the governments around the world are still trying to find other alternatives to cope with the pandemic situations in their countries so that people can adapt to the new norms. The education industry is one of the many that has been hit by the pandemic. For example, Malaysian government through the Ministry of Education has declared that e-learning methods will continue for all higher education institutions (HEIs) in the country, provided that all students have access to the internet. On top of that, the government has launched Kelas at Rumah, a regular television show available on a free-to-view television station, to resolve the inability of many households to buy computers. The Malaysian government also took some initiatives to provide 1 GB free internet through selected telco companies throughout the movement control order. Package Rangsangan Ekonomi Prihatin Rakyat Prihatin was presented by the Prime Minister. Free internet worth around 600 million will be distributed for students around the country starting from 1st April 2020 until the end of MCO. Through the data plan, 225,784 units of SIM cards were distributed for students in collaboration with telecommunication companies, UiTM Foundation and Lembaga Tabung Haji. The remaining 94,612 students will receive a cash grant for the purpose of purchasing a data plan. The government will channel one-off assistance of Rm200 per students of higher learning institutions who are currently affected.
Furthermore, during the Prihatin Rakyat Economic Stimulus Package, or also known as Prihatin, the government has agreed to provide a deferment of loan repayment to borrowers of the National Higher Education Fund Corporation (PTPTN) from 1st April 2020 to 30th September 2020. This initiative will benefit a total of 174,500 borrowers. The Higher Education Minister, Dato Dr. Noraini Ahmad, said that the decision was made following the recent announcement on the targeted 3-month extension on bank loan moratoriums. She added prior to this, the government had implemented a 6-month deferment for PTPTN loan repayment that would end in September. The move would benefit 1.5 million borrowers, involving a total of 750 million ringgit. Following the recent announcement by the Prime Minister, the government has agreed to also extend the moratorium for PTPTN loans until December, involving another 375 million ringgit, making up a total of 1.125 billion ringgit. Moreover, the government would not proceed with the repayment scheme mooted by the previous administration to impose the repayment mechanism that enabled borrowers to start serving the loans only when their monthly salary reached 4,000 ringgit. To help these students to keep up with their lessons, the Office of Adun Bukit Gasing is embarking on a campaign called #LaptopForSiswa that aims to collect and distribute laptops for tertiary students in need. Around 8,965 units of laptops are allocated to institutions of higher learning IPT students, targeted especially those under the B40 category. During this campaign, 5,965 students will receive free laptops assistance. In addition, a total of 2,700 students will receive assistance in the form of cash grants for the same purpose, while a total of 300 students will enjoy financial loan assistance to own the necessary laptops at special prices.
Alright, as we have been keen about open distance learning, there are a few ways to maximize interaction and communication. One of the ways is to use the chat box if you choose not to turn on the mic. This is to avoid an echo between the speaker and the listener during conversations through various types of video calls. Speaking of video calls, there are plenty of which to choose from to interact between lecturers and students, such as Microsoft Teams, Zoom, and Google Meet. These platforms are the best ways for lecturers to use to ask questions or opinions from the students. Students should not be afraid to ask questions to get better clarifications. Remember that your lecturers are accessible, approachable, and eager to help you. That's all from us today. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. The admissions will have another mission. Bye!